Yes. Personal correspondence. Colonel Bradley Crawford to Admiral Nimitz. Dear Admiral, attached to this letter you will find my final report on the state of the Japanese as we know it now throughout the recent conflict. I'm sure in later years much more information will be available, but for now, this is as much as we can tell you about where they were and what they were doing. I hope this provides you help with upcoming studies on what might happen in future wars. As for myself, sir, I thank you for allowing me the great privilege of leading Marines into combat, even if it was only for a few days before the Japanese unexpectedly surrendered. I thank you for this privilege, sir, and vow to continue in service to our country for as long as she may need me. Thank you for all your leadership in the war. I remain devotedly yours, Colonel Bradley Crawford, U.S. MC. Hey everybody, it's the Wargaming Guy. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the second ever Postmortem now. For those of you that might be a little concerned, no, I'm not planning on doing this after every single series I run. But I think in this case it's appropriate. So we're going to kick off right here with War in the Pacific, and this is the Japanese dispositions as they were after my first video. I don't save games after every turn, but I do save each video at the end of each recording session. So the red dots, of course, are the Japanese, and the other colors and stars and things are Allied forces. So as you can see, I kind of thought they might retreat back towards Japan, but they do not. They come here. And as you can see, you got the three of the carriers here, the Soryu, the Shokaku, and the Akagi heading down this way into the Marshall Islands. You've got some more ships here. You've got another ship there. Look at this. You've got amphibious troops here heading where? Towards where else? The Solomon Islands. And they've actually got a light cruiser and a heavy cruiser out here sort of guarding the approaches to Guadalcanal. So, and there's a DD. So they were clearly, obviously, the AI is all planned out on this here. We've got a, what is that? Yeah, SNLF landing force. You got another one up here. So the AI is clearly all set up and ready to go here. Meanwhile, over here, they've pushed us back in the Philippines. Look at all these guys. I got a bunch of ships here, a bunch here, and over here you can see in terms of reserves in China, they actually don't have much. Now, AI has a tendency in many of the other SC games to really build up reserves and kind of not use them all that often. But here, they don't really have that much. So you can see all the disposition of their forces. And over here, as they're starting to punch through into Burma, look at that. They don't have a lot here. So it's very interesting. At least I think it is, to check all this stuff out. They've already taken these guys, and they haven't yet arrived in the Dutch East Indies. And here's some of our troops, of course, and nothing's going on here. So that's the Japanese deployment at the end of the first video that you saw, but let's move forward to the second. So this is the disposition of forces now after the second video, and you'll notice we've clustered a lot of guys up here, but the Japanese have moved a bunch, and look at their CVs. Look at this, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they've got a bunch of troops down here. Seem to be pretty well actually positioned to intercept any strikes from these islands. Although if you're coming straight up out of Australia, if you get past the sub there, they've still got this screened nicely. So they're actually set up very well. Heavy cruiser there. They got this guy who's amphibiously going to land there, or they've already has. So he's mounted up to come down here then. Yeah, I would say one of the mistakes I made early was not getting somebody in there. I don't know if you can beat the Japanese to that or not, but it would certainly be worth a try. Meanwhile, over here, look at this. The AI knows how to move its fleets pretty well. And then you got these guys here, and you've got, of course, here they come. They've already captured Sarawak, so they're going to be coming down now here for the Dutch East Indies. Timor is still open. And yeah, they got it grouped here. And here they come now. Look at this. In the time since we last saw the invasion of Burma, well, boom, they have added a lot of troops to their force here. This is a major force. Look at that. 2 armies, special forces, recon slash tank, 1, 2, 3 corps, and they're leading with their air force. So anyway, over here, they have a pretty strong force too, although not that much infantry. This is mostly, air and other units. And as you can see, as we come up here, ooh, that guy's a strong guy. There's not a ton of reserves here. So again, Japanese did not do what they used to do a lot of, which is move back into home islands, except for this guy. This is the Junio, and it's just being built up apparently. So there you go with that. Let's check the next one. And here we are. This is at the end of the 3rd video, which I did. And as you can see, once more, the Japanese are building up their troops here. They've got this. Their fleet is pulled back a little from where it was because they have Guadalcanal now. So, but they've still got 2 CVs here. Oh, and 1 down here. That's right. Yeah, that one's there. So the majority of their naval power is still down here in the Solomons. Meanwhile, over here, yeah, they are going to be taking the Dutch East Indies shortly and all the goodies that go with that. And they are driving into Burma strongly with that massive force. They've taken Rangoon. So over here, yeah, you're not going to see much progress here. This is one of those areas where actually the Chinese will push down in here and endanger this road before too long. So, and the Chinese still have somebody there. So, yeah, so that's it. Not much has changed really, except, ooh, look at this. I'll take that back. Is that yeah, that's the Junio. It's, but look at that. It's still 5 on its air strength. So this, I think, is probably a good example of the Japanese not having the MPPs they would love to have in order to really create new units and rebuild old ones. It's taken them quite a few turns just to get to this point, and they're only halfway, 2/4, let's say 3/4 of the way there. And then they've got other guys up here too. So the Nagato. So they've got, they've got ships that are coming in, but otherwise their naval forces are still clustered in the Solomons and the Dutch East Indies at this point. Okay, so we've skipped ahead to the end of turn 5 because we're not going to go through every turn because it just takes too long. It's interesting to look at Australia now as compared to what it was, and look at this. This is huge. This is huge. This is part of this battle we were having with them then, where our CVs were going at each other, our smaller craft were going at each other, and they've got their CVs very smartly except for this guy. Let's see, he's the Akagi's up second line, up front almost, and then they've got the Ryuyo, and this is probably going to be the Shokaku and the Soryu, yeah. So they're really trying to defend their boys, that's for sure. Meanwhile, we've spread out here. As you can see, we just don't have as much as they do. Although down here, yeah, we are spread out all over the place. We're trying to gather together here and get ready to counterattack and take back Guadalcanal is what we're trying to do. It's November 23rd, 1942 at this point. And look, they've taken all of the Dutch East Indies much quicker than most people take all of them, that's for sure. Meanwhile here, yep, they're pushing towards the border with India. They're pretty close. And as you could see, look at this. They got an army and special forces unit and not much up here to block them other than a Chinese headquarters unit. Everything else, let's go over and visit. Oh, okay, so they've moved some of their ships out here. They finally got the Junior ready to go. They got more. Look at this. Is this the? Yeah, that's the Musashi. It's ready. So they are building up still, slowly but slowly. But that's what they were set up as. The vast majority of their fleet, even guys along here, some of them must have come over here or in this area. This is interesting. He's like in a rough spot. Sorry, I made a mistake when I loaded this, but this is what turned at the end of my 8th video. This is what it looks like without Fog of War on. Now I'll turn Fog of War on. Actually, I said that backwards. Fog of War was on. Now it's off, and now you can see the big difference it makes in whatever is happening. Look at that. Now, for the first time, I'm really seeing as the war has been going on here a bit. It seems like we've got quite a buildup. It's January 21st, 1943. Quite a buildup in Japan. But let's take a look at this first. Okay, here we are. We've retaken Guadalcanal from them, and we're pushing them back. Again, we're having these sea battles here. Look at that. There's the Soryu managed to survive this. It was so frustrating. I remember trying to kill their carriers. And there's, who's that? That's the Shokaku. Otherwise, yeah, you notice they've got one up here, which is kind of expected. The Akagi getting refit a little bit, maybe. Some subs here. What do they got over here? Anything? Not much. Yeah. So, and of course, we've got all these guys getting ready to go, showing the ability of the Allies to just outproduce the Japanese big time. So let's go up to the home island. And yeah, look at all this. So they're getting some ground troops in there too. But the Navy, for the most part, looks pretty much, is this, yeah, that's Unio just getting started. And over here, this all looks pretty much the same. That's the thing about the front in China. It doesn't, in this game, didn't move a whole lot for much of the game. And then over here, of course, they are basically at the border now, and will be a long, long fight just holding them there. But at this point, you can see the Americans we're building up more stuff to send over every turn. Japanese are building up, but they can't keep up. And this right here, wow, what a fight. That was great. All right, here we go. This is after turn 11, I believe it is. It's May 21st, 1943. We're completely now in charge of the Solomons, and now it's just a matter of trying to take this stubborn position and make some progress. But yeah, you can see we pushed up here. Look at this, boy. The Shokaku's in a very bad spot and pretty beat down. The Akagi is also pretty beat down, but it's in a better place. They got a battleship there. They got, yeah. They're not. They don't have as much in the Solomons because they've lost a lot. They do have this though. Well, that's interesting. So they've got the Chuyo and the Junyo or Junyo, whatever you pronounce it. And then here we go again. Notice they've managed by this time to split the Japanese forces here, which you would think we would have gotten more out of than we did, but we never. It took a long, long time to beat these guys into submission. So, yeah. So you can see that the Japanese don't have a lot in the way of reserves, which is exactly as it should be. In the past, I think in other versions of Strategic Command Pacific War, that they probably in China, I think they would have had more, but they don't here. And that's fine because they were stretched to the max and then some in China. And you can see the Russians are kind of not doing much yet. But yeah, so they are building up. They do have a fairly formidable strike force here, a little weak in carriers, but their surface fleet's pretty powerful. Lots of battleships. I remember remarking on how could they build this many battleships? Well, here you go. 1, 2. We'll count the super battleships. 2, 3, 4, 5. So they got 5 right there. It's amazing. So, yeah. and he's barely hanging on. So there you go. That's the way it looks at this point. The real offensive now is the Solomons. We're past the Solomons now, and we're up into the Carolines, while still dealing with some things in the Solomon area, like this. But pretty much that's where we're heading. Obviously, and the Japanese are still holding the Marianas just fine at this point. All right, here's the situation after after video 15. And as you can see, they're still out here. We're flooding stuff in, but they haven't given up yet. And meanwhile, over here, again, look at this. We finally pushed them up, but they've still got a foothold there, and they're still here. So this was this long slog fight we had here. They kept reinforcing their carriers, bringing them down, doing damage. As you can see here, the Akagi's pretty beat up, but still very functional. Same for the Shokaku. And the ships they had in the homelands are pretty much gone. They've moved them out. And where they went is the question. Where did they go? Well, they've got guys out here. They got a whole bunch of guys here, but obviously that's not Navy. Apparently, a lot of them are sitting at the bottom of the ocean because there's no big, huge. Some of this is Navy. No, it's not. Yeah. So we have, by this time, sunk a lot of their Navy. They're still fighting. The IJN fights hard and long, doesn't give up, but they're running out of ships at this point, very definitely, but still slowing me down with what they have. You got to give them credit where credit is due. And over here, yeah, we haven't started our counteroffensive there yet, although it's going to get its act together and start coming for them very soon. Oh, and here, we forgot about this guy. Yeah, the Chuyo, boy, it took him all that time to build him up. Look at him now. He's got no air wings left at all and only 2 strength in his actual ship. Wow. So he's in bad shape. And then, of course, up here, we've pushed them back from the border a little bit, but it's still this interminable fight for Burma, which just seems to go on and on and on forever. Let's do one more. All right. This is after turn 17, and as you can see, the allies here are kind of all over the place. We've managed to clear this out. We're in the Carolines now, and we're driving towards Guam and Saipan and Tinian, and none of that is good news for the Japanese. There's the Chuyo, managed to survive, probably by running away very quickly. But in terms of actual ships, we're not seeing too many, are we? Nope. The IJN at this point has really been beaten down. Oh, they're still holding on one ship. And they're obviously not coming back. So, meanwhile, over here, again, this fight here, that hasn't moved much. The fight here hasn't moved much either. This hasn't done much, although we're starting now, because we actually took this and pushed them back. So we're starting to eat into this group. And supply down here is a nightmare for both sides. I think it might be worse for the Japanese, which is why they crumble before us. Meanwhile, look at that. Only one army's holding all this off. And up here, they pushed in a little bit, and look at this. Look at all this way out here. But his supply, of course, is 0, 3, 5. I'm amazed they can get 5 out there. 4. How can this be 5 and this be 4? See, oh, he's on a town. And this guy back here. So, yeah, it was getting to be pretty obvious that the naval war with Japan was not over, but it was coming to an end. Their ability to do much isn't there. They got a light cruiser here, and on a CVL here, and that's it as far as the homeland goes. So, yeah, definitely in trouble. All right, here we are. This is going to be our final one. This is after 20. This is the end of the 20th video that I put out. And as you can see here, now it's just kind of all over. But the shouting, in terms of the naval war, now the ground war, they've still got people places. These guys are still here, believe it or not. It's interesting. Excuse me, that's a cavalry division sitting in the Gilbert Islands. That's interesting. Here we're trying to take this. We eventually will. Oh man, look at that sub with just one. Too bad I couldn't have gotten him. We're invading here, but not making real quick progress, but we're going to get it eventually. And then, of course, over here, we've completely taken the Marianas. Iwo stands alone. And over here, we are in the process of retaking the Philippines and very quickly will. Meanwhile, ship-wise, which is what we've been sort of concentrating on, yeah, look, there's the homeland, and they've got a CV. It's the Taiho, and it's half strength. And they've got a CVL, which is our pal, the Chuyo, and he's 2 and 0. So he still has no air wing. He's only 2. So he hasn't been repaired at all. And then, of course, you've got these guys, which caused us so much trouble. All right. And as far as the ground goes, well, let's just, they're still up here, but we've blocked them just to make sure they weren't going anywhere. The air power up here did okay, but this was kind of a waste. And down here, yep, it's pretty much the same. It looks like they've started to pull back a little. This was when we had this guy surrounded. We've pushed these guys back a little bit. So the writing's on the wall here in June of 1944. We have the Free Indians are fighting to hold Hanoi. We still haven't got to Hanoi yet. Meanwhile, over here, we've made some progress, but this is still a tough slog here, very tough. And this is, of course, after we managed to take Singapore, so that kind of threw them for a loop. And we've got these guys charging up here, and whoop, and we are just about to start the reconquest of the Dutch East Indies. So there you go. There's a Japanese destroyer. Only strength of 3, so he hasn't got much going for himself. And that's it. So we're gonna oh, there's a sub. We're gonna call it quits at this point. Obviously, you know the rest of the story. So it's been an interesting, at least for me, interesting postmortem in the sense that to see how well the AI did with their Navy. Sure, they made mistakes and probably could have done better, but then again, so could I. I made a lot of mistakes in this game. The ones that burned me the most were losing those transports. Totally, it just drove me crazy. That's really poor generalship, if you ask me. So, yeah. But overall, this has been, I think, if it's not the most, it is one of the most rewarding campaigns I've done in Strategic Command. It's not the most fun. The most fun in the sense of just wacky, off-the-wall, crazy stuff would still have to be with Strategic Command World at War when the Chinese drove the Japanese out of China, invaded Japan with one unit. It sat there forever, somehow didn't die. And when Japan surrendered, China got the credit for that, which gave them enough MPPs to mount a small force to Europe and fought through the Balkans and into the war, fighting in the Balkans, trying to get to Berlin. That was one of the wackiest games I've ever seen. But in terms of putting together a plan, a roughly historical plan, roughly, I say, and executing it and being able to do so against an enemy which responded, again, in roughly historical fashion. Actually, I think the AI here was smarter than the Japanese in history in some ways. In terms of they never really had a midway wherein, one battle, they lost pretty much the heart of their carrier operations. So I think the AI did a great job. I really enjoyed this. If you haven't played this, I want to recommend it. It is much harder to play from the Japanese side and ought to be. And certainly when I played my Japanese campaign, I should have done better on that. But either way, I've just had a blast with this. Now, in case you're wondering, is this it for the new Strategic Command War in the Pacific? No, it's not. Not on my channel. I know some of you don't like it, and I'm sorry, but I love it. And so the next thing we're going to do is play one of the smaller scenarios. So I don't know how fast it'll go or anything else. I haven't even looked at it, but it's the Solomon's campaign. And it actually has units for each of the 4 Marine Raider battalions. As most of you know, my dad served in the 4th Raiders and fought there until they disbanded the Raiders. And then he went on to fight on Guam and Okinawa. And then he was in the Marine Reserves and got sent to Korea. Was in the Chosin Reservoir, so he saw a lot. God bless him, he's gone, but never forgotten. And so we are going to play through that one from the U.S. side next, and then I'll decide if I want to do the Solomons from the Japanese side or move on to another scenario or whatever. And your input will help me make those decisions. So, having said all of that, and talking for probably far too long, I'm going to be quiet now. So this is the Wargaming Guy. Thanking you so much for watching. So much appreciate you being out there and all of your feedback. Let me know what you think of this. And until next time, take care. God bless you. And I'll see you later.